Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Gabriel and welcome to Collapse Talk. This episode is going to be another interview episode or joint episode. So it's going to be between me and Michelle Nuncio. She's a friend of mine. We're just really just talking back and forth about just the current situation, us as regular young people, how we're coping with the current climate and just getting by really. But really, it's just an episode to talk. I kind of wanted to do more with just joint guests and less about me just ranting and raving on this program. Because I know, like the last episode, I was just going off the rails. But it's really just, well, in a ways, a vent and also just to just talk between two peoples and just to bounce ideas. But yeah, really, I just hope, because I'm going to be talking with friends, really just associates in my life, but also I do hope to expand and talk to people like you. If you're, any of you are curious and want to speak with me online, then sure, we can definitely set up an episode or set up a Skype interview. But yeah, so this is just really a 2 hour talk between me and Michelle, my friend of mine, and we're going back and forth. We were trying to get some connections up and going, and there was actually a blackout in my town, so maybe there was something to do with connectivity. On my end, actually, I think it was okay, but we were trying to get video set up so I could at least record that. But it was just we could only just get the audio. So yeah, so there is some choppiness, and there is times where we do talk over each other, but that's really just more an improvement on my part, just interviewing skills and just shutting up and talking or listening, I should say. But other than that, I think it was a good talk, and we at least uh, talked about some very important things, very topical things, and at the same time, there was still a lot that we could have expanded on. But that's just we'll save that for later. But yes, so this episode between two doomers, yeah, that's between me and Michelle. So thanks for tuning in. This is what this show is, or the interview segment is. So yeah, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely. My name is Michelle,
Yep.
and then I'm glad that I'm a guest right now. Yeah,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So,
during this
um,
whole quarantine.
yeah, this quarantine, through Skype video message, and I think it's going to be a little bit easier to talk to people at least and just get their insight. I mean, we're more like friends, so we talk all the time, but I want to at least bring you on the show, and at least just hear what your thoughts are about everything. Um, so yeah, so of course the big topic of conversation or just the our daily lives right now, at least in the United States, is the coronavirus, the COVID-19 outbreak. So how have you been holding up with that so far?
So far, I've been holding up pretty good. Like at least in a better situation that other people are at right now. I know that it's been tough for everybody, but so far I can say that I'm stable. Obviously, things are gonna come up like like we're not being able to go to work because like I work in the um the food industry. I work like in a restaurant, and so far everything's closed. Not that it's closed, but like the business is not booming like usual, so they don't need as much as staff that they used to before. Whenever like people had to like come in, we had to do takeout, more than that.
Yeah.
So it is being like hard on that part, but so far, I was actually ready for if anything happened that made me have to stop working for at least a couple of months. But I know there's like some people out there that were just not prepared for this, which is kind of like in my head that is like I guess like I'm worried for like the rest. There are other people that are just not in a good situation right now. But so far for myself, it's like pretty stable. I can say that
Well, that's good that on your end,
definitely.
your things are holding up at least. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of people struggling. Um, it's just interesting the effect that this virus that supposedly is just like the flu, but the effects that it has in the economy because we have a very consumer-based economy. So when people stop spending, when they stop going out and
Yeah,
spending, it freezes everything. So it's just interesting
yeah,
how that happened because like in terms of pandemics and epidemics, like this is still pretty serious, but when you look at history, there have been far worse like outbreaks. So or at least we have medical systems that are able to help it. I mean the United States is going to struggle with this for sure, but
yeah,
this is not like
definitely.
something like Ebola. Like if there was an Ebola outbreak, like that would really like cause some damage here. So, not to speculate or just in terms of historically, or at least from our perspective. But yeah, so it's
Yeah.
just interesting. There's been record unemployment. Yeah, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on that? At least like, because when you look at the charts, you see like
Uh-huh.
it's just like little bumps here and there, and then you see like 2008, and it's not even like it's nowhere near this. It wasn't like millions in 2008 because yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on
Like
that?
right now, I know. Like right now, I know that at least like half of the population right now has already applied for unemployment, which is also like harshing the fact that it's like all these people are on unemployment, and obviously, I mean, they're probably getting help because they filed for unemployment. But I know a lot of people like uh, immigrants or so like that are not gonna be getting any help, or there is immigrants still going to work as essential employees, but and they're being like a part of our economy right now, but they're not gonna be getting any credit from it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely
which is like
it doesn't include or protect enough people. Like there's still a lot of people
yeah,
that aren't gonna get some benefits from this. It's just interesting to see the U.S. response to this because you look at other countries like Canada or the United Kingdom.
yeah.
The United Kingdom is pretty like close to our system, or at least like just politically, and
At least just
they're
like yeah,
they're offering all this these checks, and it's not even like a question. It's just like take the money, save
yeah.
it,
It's like
and
wow, mm-hmm. It's just basic human rights.
yeah,
At
basic
least on
human
the
rights.
situation that we're at, it's just not an option. It's like why would you even question to hand over to your citizens in general, like no matter if they are here legally or illegally, like they're still part of. Like I can even say like obviously like even illegal immigrants that like living here, they're still part of the census. Why won't you add them as well to like the help that you're giving out?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that whole citizenship question is just it. A lot of people want to frame it as not a like a xenophobic outlook, but it's just absolutely is because they're always targeting minorities or people of color. It's never about
Mm-hmm.
you know I don't know how to dive into that, but it's
Oh, yeah.
it's a red herring because obviously like when you look at places like the UK now with Brexit, like a lot of immigrants have
Mm.
left the country, and so there's reports now of
Yeah.
like UK workers having to work on the fields now, picking all these different fruits, and you know, it's like obviously like it, I'm not like pro like cheap labor because I still believe those people deserve some like union rights or some kind of compensation, but it's still like you need
So
those
yeah,
people
definitely.
to come into the country to do the hard labor because they're willing to do it. Like it's nothing for them, So not to say that
Yeah.
we shouldn't pick up some of that as well, but when those people are in the country and they're working and also they're earning money
Yeah,
from
the first
that
job that
work.
you put in front of them, they're gonna pick it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're earning money and then they're going to spend it, and so that's where they also pay sales tax, and so it's all these different
Hmm.
aspects that they're just like, oh well, they'll look at a group of workers that are the Americans workers who are just like I'm not getting the benefits or the amount of income as I was before, what's going on, and then
Hmm.
this one's climbing. I'm sorry. And they as I was saying, they understand that they're being ripped off, but then they go to their bosses, and the bosses are like, "Oh, well, it's obviously these people." So it's deflection. So they obviously say it's the immigrants coming in taking our labor, and so it's like, okay, but like look at the labor that they're taking. Do you want that? Uh, I mean, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah,
you better walk
definitely.
you
It's
better
like,
walk
you
the
want to
walk.
do this
Yeah,
job or not?
yeah, because they're
Yeah.
happy to do it. Like they're happy to do it, and they're at least they know that they're trying to provide a better life for their families. Like it's a humanitarian aspect, and a lot of the people who are I'm not saying all of them are, because a lot of them they do have legit arguments
Hmm.
about immigration, but when it comes to like the treatment and like when you have people advocating for these like camps, because there's concentration camps, I mean, what else are you going to say about them? It's it
Yeah.
obviously like you obviously didn't pay attention to social studies because you know where this ends. Like, don't fuck with me, because yeah. So yeah,
I was
it's
paying
strange.
attention to social studies.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So um, and I mean, let's not even like talk about like because there's the ICE detention camps, and then you also look at uh our
Yeah.
prison
There's
system.
a lot to look at.
Yeah, our prison system. It's basically like that thing, but on just a larger scale. It's like it's modern slavery.
Uh-huh.
That's what it is. That people pretty much acknowledge it now. Um, but it's interesting because I live in Huntsville, and there's a couple
Hmm.
prisons outside of the area, and I wanted to come out here
Yeah, I've seen
because
them for sure.
like I knew it was going to be a smaller population. People aren't going to be coming in, so it's like there's been a couple cases,
Mhm.
but it hasn't like spread too quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and it's
I
pretty
know the
easy to
prison
isolate.
is really harsh right now because there's inmates that are actually like infected by the virus, and I mean, there's
Yeah,
definitely not much help involved in that case.
no, no, there's no help at all. So it's interesting. So my point being about living out here is that, of course, it's very easy to isolate, and it's also very easy to distance myself and still do what I need to do. Um,
Yeah.
but then you think about the prison population, which is not that far from here. Like it's literally a 10-minute drive. So it's just interesting about the treatment of those prisoners during this. Hold on, let me grab this one. Okay.
Yeah, she's just hanging it out there.
Okay. So I hope she doesn't chew the wire. Um, by the way, for those listening, I have a pet rat and I just put him on my shoulder. Um, but
Yeah, I've been looking at her.
yeah. So um it's interesting when it comes to the prison population here in Texas. It's well, it's just in the South in general or any red state, it's just like mistreated. Like there's no human rights for you here.
Yeah,
And
no. The
so
South in general.
now that there's an outbreak of this virus and disease, I mean, I have insiders in the TDCJ who, they'll tell me that like, okay, they're taking precautions, but it's mainly for the staff, of course, and but they understand that the minute it spreads into the
Yeah,
inmates, like they're just gonna shut it down. And like for them it's about the money, so like they'll find
yeah,
justifications
she
to
can hit
make
the
some
wall
cuts.
anytime soon.
Yeah, they'll find some justification to make some cuts and like not treat those prisoners right. And actually, I don't know,
Mhm.
I haven't seen anything about this in like any major news outlets, but I've seen at least two video recordings of like prison riots in like Louisiana and I think Kansas, like because the prisoners
Oh,
they rose up because they understood, hey, you're gonna leave us to die. This is bullshit. Like, so it's
yeah.
look, they're in there for a reason, but you also have to understand that like most of these laws are bullshit and they're clearly targeted for minority groups, people of color, black people. Um, so
Mm.
it's
Yeah, they're
like,
the ones being affected the most right now.
yeah, it's like, this topic is very like stepping into like conspiracy theory territory, but like you have to understand that like the largest portion of the impoverished population is people of color, minorities, and that's not a mistake really. Like that's the system is clearly built to sustain at least a particular group of people, or at the very least a particular mindset that they want to instill. So like, okay, you can be this particular minority, but you have to think like us in order to be part of the club. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
so it's assimilation through power and wealth. And so, you can be part of the club, but you have to play by our rules and you have to talk and think like us. Okay, you can be a bit like yourself, but not too much.
Mm.
Like, okay, we'll accept this. Yeah, so it's very sneaky. It's very under the covers, but it's there. And so we have this incident like an epidemic or pandemic with this COVID-19
And
virus,
then again,
and you have our healthcare system that is clearly built to help the wealthy because
the wealthy, not
yeah, the wealthy,
yeah.
the tight knit groups, because they're talking about how the general surgeon or surgeon general, he came out and spoke and said, or they were asking him a question like, why is this hitting affecting people of color, minorities more often? And so he's like,
Mhm.
I don't know, I didn't read the full statement, but it was
Yeah.
paraphrasing to like he was saying that it was their recreational activities having to do with drugs, alcohol, and
No, I
that
don't
that's
think
that's
so at
and
all.
I mean like
But
look, there's a lot of people who drink and smoke and do drugs and like and I'm not saying that I'm
uh,
innocent, but
and it doesn't
it's
have
like
to do.
yeah, it's nothing to do with like your skin color. So yeah, I'm drinking a Corona because that's the way things roll now. Um, but
But it's also like affecting the most minorities because they're the ones that need to go to work right now.
yeah,
Or I don't know if you've seen New York, like their trains are still like filled with people because, and like you can see, and it's mostly minorities, like either like
they have
Hispanic
to.
or Black people. They're in there because they have to go to work to
Yeah,
provide for their families. Like during this pandemic, yes, we have to stay home, but also they're not stopping the bills for
yeah.
anyone. Like the pandemic started on like March, almost the end of the month, and people had to pay the bills by the next week.
Look, people are still acting like this is going to disappear, and that's
Yeah,
because they're in
it's not.
denial. Because it's not, unless there's a vaccine developed, and that's going to take some time. Because it's funny because like Trump literally like he was serious. He was serious. If nobody spoke up to him enough about like not reopening the country in Easter, we would everything would be back to normal. And honestly,
Yeah,
like in my area, business is going on as normal, uh, or at least people are taking precautions. But
yeah.
I'm not going to be too surprised when there's at least 100, maybe in like a month or so. So that's just the way things are now. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I live in a pretty like lightly populated area, so people are able to distance themselves enough. But yeah, it's not going to go away. They talk about things going back to normal, and
It's
it's
not
just
gonna
like,
disappear out of nowhere.
yeah, like okay, things haven't been normal. I'll put you back. Things haven't been normal since like 9/11, really. Like that's that's the thing. Like people are like
That's a
it,
good example.
it
Yeah,
like have you heard that song, Billy Joel, We've Never Started the Fire, or We Didn't Start the Fire. Like it's just like this is an event that we're reacting now to, and it's a shock to us right now, but we're gonna have to adapt, and it's a fork in the road, for for lack of a better word. So yeah, but I mean that's happening in the United States. I wanted to at least ask you about like outside the country. So where were your family from again?
Um, well, from like my family, they all come from Mexico, but right now they're all in Cleveland. We do have family in Mexico actually, and we've been like speaking to them, and they're like, well, actually, like last month, whenever all this started to like break out and everything, we were talking to them, and they were kind of acting like if there wasn't anything like about the virus in Mexico.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my gosh, like if you're ever in danger, like you can come here and stuff like that, or like I can take care of the kids because of that huge, like they watch the news and all that they can see is like the United States like on fire because of the coronavirus. But
Yeah.
because of the president, yeah, because of the president and everything in Mexico, they're not aware. Like I don't know if you've seen videos of like the Mexico's president. They're like, oh, don't worry, like don't stop like hugging each other and like holding hands and everything. Like this doesn't have to like no, like there's a whole video of like him and he's like, I'm still gonna continue like hugging people and everything. And
Yeah.
he's like, Jesus and like the and Maria is like on my side and he's like holding up like little like necklaces. And he's like, don't worry, you guys, like. And then like they tried. He was actually um in contact with somebody that tested positive for the coronavirus,
Oh,
for
yeah.
COVID-19, and he refused to test himself. He was like, I don't have
That's the
that.
president
Yeah,
of
and he was
Mexico?
like, yeah, and everybody, because of everything, everybody obviously didn't follow anything like from like stop going outside, like people continue going outside last month whenever everything started happening over here.
Yeah.
And so like you can see videos of him going out to like the citizens, like the Mexican citizens, like hugging them and everything, like if everything was normal. But it was obviously like really worrying for everybody and me like personally, because like all my family is in Mexico, so it's like, oh, okay, you guys actually have to like listen to us. Like right now we're literally in the trenches
Yeah.
because we did not listen whenever we had to, like.
Yeah.
And
It's just
right now, like they're calling us and they're actually taking action. Like they're telling us whenever they want to go and shop. They're not letting any kids into like the grocery stores or anything like that.
mhm.
But
That's good. At least they're paying attention.
yeah,
Yeah. What part of Mexico are they in?
they're in Nuevo León, Monterrey,
Okay.
kind of like up north, which is
Okay.
it's pretty close over here. But I know there is a lot of ignorance in general in Mexico, so I know there's a lot of people that still don't listen.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, for
that's just
sure.
international. Like, I can't even like.
International for sure. Yeah,
Yeah. So like, yeah, because being from the Dominican Republic, there's been some cases there, and there's an outbreak there. Um, it's just interesting because whenever like some disaster happens there, or something in Mexico also, they will turn to the United States like, hey, can you help us out? But now we're in the middle of something too, so we're just like,
yeah,
hey, chill, like we have a mess of our own, because we didn't prepare. So how are we gonna offer international aid when we're in the middle of a disaster too? You know what I'm saying? So they're gonna have to turn
yeah.
to uh, guess who? China, or Russia maybe.
Mhm.
Who knows? So they're
We're
gonna
all turning into China. Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting because I made a point in one of my earlier episodes, and people are upset at China, and rightfully so because they did like mess up a lot. Like this was
Yeah.
actually like because they're saying like because the real outbreak happened in like December, but now they're saying like some U.S. intelligence knew about it in November, so China definitely knew about
Yeah,
it earlier
they've
than
always
that.
knew.
Yeah, so
Trump has been acting like no one warned him about this, and it's like no, like it's been months.
yeah, you like yeah, like we have top people on top of this, and he fired the
Mhm.
pandemic team, so it's just like they made cuts and they weren't thinking about when you're head of state, there's like, or at least in the 21st century, there's so much you have to prepare for. So like, you know, initially when this came out, people didn't even know if this was like a bioterror attack, like which could have been a
Mm.
possibility. Now we know that's not a
Yeah.
possibility. But the military at least has contingencies for everything. They literally have a contingency for zombie attacks. So like, they plan about this stuff. And if Trump wasn't going to listen to the military about this, then like, come on, like this is like beyond incompetence. This is just like the people who there was legit I saw a video of uh they were interviewing these people in Louisiana or some southern state who were coming out of a church, and the reporter was like stopping people, and they asked one lady, and he was asking like, aren't you worried about getting sick and then possibly spreading it? Because I mean clearly she's not going to take precautions at a grocery store or a retail store, and like if she just gets sick, it's
Yeah.
just like if you get sick and then you're going willy-nilly, hey, hi, how are you doing? You're gonna get people sick, and
Mhm.
you can be an asymptomatic carrier.
Yeah.
That that's a real thing.
Yeah,
There's
like you
people.
never know,
Yeah,
unless you actually go and get yourself tested. But also, that's pretty not being given like candy, you know.
yeah, and that's it's pretty limited right now. So when he was talking to this lady coming out of the car or driving out of the parking lot, she was just like, I'm covered in the blood of Jesus Christ. I'll never get sick. I'm just like, oh wow. Yeah, so
Yes, I actually seen that.
you've seen
Yeah.
that? Okay. I'm sure a lot of people have seen
Yeah.
that. But like, you know, there's real fundamentalism in this country. People don't want to at least
Yeah.
admit that. It's real. It's like Taliban level, ISIS level. Like people don't want to acknowledge that. But when an event like this happens, these radicals they wrap themselves around their religion because that's the only like guide that they have because they can't think for
Yeah.
themselves. Um,
Escape, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is not to like trash talk religion. Okay, I'm an atheist, so that's just my perspective on it. But it's just like, you can have faith in spirituality, but then there's like dogma where it's like, no, of course not. Like, you, yeah. Um, so there's that. So I mean, I read somewhere in the or that I've read that the governor of Kentucky he has stated that they're gonna have troopers go to every single church, and if they see people parked, there,
Mhm.
they're gonna take their license and all their information, and they're gonna like quarantine them. They're not gonna let them leave for 2 weeks. So like he's just like he's like, do not go to church, and they're not gonna do that here in Texas. Like like that's an essential yeah, for them it's essential at least. um but yeah,
Yeah.
were you typing
The
something?
Yeah, I was actually looking up because I did watch this video of like there were like people going into the church and everything, and there was
Yeah,
like huge lines, like just a regular like church day. And I was trying to see what state it was, but I think
yeah,
it was Texas. And I was like,
possibly. There's a lot of people in
possibly,
Texas.
yeah.
They're not gonna. No, it's a democratic hoax. It's a Chinese hoax. They did a study that like the level of like preparedness for this pandemic also coincides with like the level of belief in climate change. So like it's just generally like it's just generally like science literacy. Like it's not even that. It's just like just wash your damn hands. Like how
Wash your damn
I
hands for 20
yeah,
seconds.
like how
Literally, just don't
hard
talk to anyone besides your family.
yeah, how hard is that? Don't go to a party. I don't know. I mean, some people they have get-togethers and I get that, but like don't go to a rager. Like what's wrong with you? So,
Yeah, like I think this is the most that people have gone outside from like whenever we were actually allowed to go outside.
yeah.
The very first day that they were like stay at home, I literally looked at my window, not even like not my window, but I was like just like going outside, or like I would ask my like talk to my friends, and they were like, this is like today is the day that I've seen the most people outside, like playing outside.
Yeah.
And that's just proof of how people like just don't listen, like they're gonna listen to the opposite.
Yeah. It's funny. It's really interesting. Like, it's like you look at like those stereotypical like movies from like the 50s or 60s because like nobody has internet then, so of course they're playing outside. Um, and then you see that happening today, and it's like of all times in history where you need to stay inside and you can stay inside, like you
Yeah.
might go a little stir crazy, that's all right, but like you know, okay, I shouldn't say that because there's some people who are in a
You gotta
position.
think about your health.
There's some people who don't have access to Wi-Fi or internet or like stuff like books or it's like they're really like just by themselves and like maybe like a mattress on the floor or something. So in that instance, yeah, that's going to be difficult. Um, but
Yeah.
like when you see like people like like in the suburbs, it's just like okay, we go out for a walk, take the dog out, that's fine. But like you know, don't don't have a soccer match in the middle of a field. I see people here in college, they're playing like frisbee or some outdoor activity. Oh, it's okay. Like, dude, you're yeah. So
Yes.
sometimes you
Like,
just I don't want to have like a Darwinistic outlook on this, but this is still like nature playing itself. So like, it
definitely.
yeah, so
It is
it,
like an invisible enemy.
yeah.
Like, okay, you can go walk your dog outside with like having like no contact with anybody outside, of course. But I mean, like, if you're going like actually like at my restaurant that I worked at, they're still open only for like pickup or like delivery,
Hmm.
and people are like going and like picking up the food because it's the woodlands. Like people are like stupid rich over there,
Yeah.
so they're like picking up the food. They have a little like a huge like tent. They set it up in the parking lot and they get together there with their friends and they eat the food because like they're not allowed to go inside the restaurant and eat it
So they
because I
still
mean
want to have a
obviously it's
get
not allowed.
together.
So they're having a get together in the parking lot with their
Wow.
friends. So it's like okay, yeah, like do whatever you want to
Yeah.
do.
People just want to hang. You can't blame people for wanting to like be with their friends and such. Like, I haven't invited any of my friends over, and I haven't been over to anybody else's place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just
Mhm.
interesting. It's a different time, at
It is
least.
interesting to see how like people are reacting to the situation
Yeah, because there's a lot of people
and how
that,
much self-control human beings have.
yeah, self-control, and also just like because there's some people who can't be left alone with themselves. Like they can't. They
No,
need
yeah,
something.
definitely.
They need something to occupy their time because when they're left alone with their thoughts, they're just like, no, like I guess
Yeah,
I
and
don't
they go
know, and
crazy.
that's
More like people like are going through
yeah,
it.
not to say that like you know I'm not gonna like I can handle solitary like that. That's not nobody can. It's just like there are some people who
Yeah.
can't like they they can't like contemplate. They can't just have a moment of silence to just like sit with their thoughts. Um, which I think is
Yeah.
very important. And I think a lot more people are now starting to realize at least, or, you know, they're just,
Yeah, without any distractions. That's kind of like
yeah.
more
And
mental.
as I was saying, we have an entire system that's based around consumption and buying and spending. So now we're in a time where we can't do that as much as possible. So people, they naturally just feel fulfilled through getting stuff, buying. Buying like the transaction itself, that's like a satisfying thing, like people are addicted to just buying shit. So the
Yes.
people they can't like go to the movies anymore. So they have to, they have Netflix maybe, but some people don't have Netflix and the movies are the only thing for
Yeah.
them. And there's not like there's any blockbuster or anything like that. So it's interesting at least.
I think that would be close to either way. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's entertainment at least is gonna be frustrating. I've heard at least that drive-in theaters are kind of making a comeback. So that's gonna that'll be a
Yeah.
nice,
I've been to
if
that would be nice.
that
Yeah.
would be nice. Yeah, I want like if they do that and they play like the original Back to the Future, like that would be my night out. Yeah. You
No,
know?
if you got to, you're like, yes, this pandemic brought it back.
Yeah, it's bringing back some things. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that's just the US that we've been talking about because we just live here and it's just interesting
Yes,
because
and
I've been
we see
talking,
everything going around.
yeah, and like I've been talking, I have some people who live internationally, so um I'm
Mm.
just like I'm just checking in on them on their situation. So it's just interesting to see how things develop. And like I have a friend in the UK, and they're just they're doing okay, but they're also like, or at least the individual, because there's still going to be a lot of people that are going to be
Mhm.
struggling there. I was actually reading that
Oh, shit.
there was like a shortage on food in the UK. Like they were saying that like at least a couple million people like just went a full day without food because their system is already strained, and they had the Brexit just happened, so they're not part of the EU anymore. They're actually gone. So yeah,
Oh,
um,
wow.
so when
What you
push
think
comes
about
to shove, I can completely imagine the EU creating some kind of blockade, or I mean I don't think that they're just going to completely leave Britain out, but at the same time like
that?
that they they have that capability now. Um,
Yeah, of course. 'Cause
so
I mean, they caused it first of all, so it's like, why would I
yeah, so I mean, like they can just clearly say like, well, you brought this on yourself. Like now you want our
think
help,
of this
and
on yourself? Right. Help
yeah,
yourself, I guess.
but then that would just push Britain or the UK into like some other sphere, maybe like Russia or China or the United States. So it's just it's interesting because
Mhm.
now you're gonna have like see a real antagonism between the UK and the EU, and that's I don't know, because the UK is an island, and also like it's not like just England. It's like Scotland and Wales. It's different places. So uh,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. Um,
The aftermath is really gonna be a huge
yeah,
um
it's
show to watch. I
yeah,
mean, we're talking about Italy. I would really like to know from like someone that lives there point of view. I've watched a couple of I guess like interviews that people have had. Like I think I watched this video of this teacher that lives. He's like from the U.S., but he moved to Spain for like just to like explore and like work there and
mhm,
everything. And he says that it's kind of like over here, like he just stays there. He goes to the grocery, but if he wants to go to the grocery, he kind of has to like hide. So there, because like as soon as like someone like a policeman sees you, he's gonna ask you what you're doing. So
yeah,
he's like he goes through cars hiding, so like a policeman doesn't see him because he doesn't want to talk to them or in general. But if
yeah.
they see you walking around, they're like, okay, you better be going to like something important.
They'll fuck with you. Yeah, they'll like it's because the police suck in general. So like when they're
Yeah.
told you must enforce this and you must enforce the stay at home order, they're gonna take, or and not all of them, but some are gonna take it as a cue for
You're
okay, I
giving them
can
way more
be
power than they really have. Yeah.
yeah, they have. I mean, here in the United States, they have the power to kill. So like, if there's going to be literally cases where like I felt like he was going to infect me, so I took his life, or that's
Yeah.
like that could seriously happen,
Like
and that's
now
gonna
they have way more reason to kill me. Damn.
yeah. So I mean, that's just interesting that because I like playing games of like stealth or like scavenging. So like I just imagine like a COVID like shopper like okay you have to evade the police or you'll get a ticket or like and just dive in between like fire hydrants or
Like
trees.
parkour.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was interesting because I've been seeing a bit about Italy, and Italy like you have to see it in the north and southern sense because like the northern part of the country is more industrial and the southern
Yeah.
is more like service based, and that's where like a lot of tourism is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so of course in the north, that's where like the major outbreak hit, and so like that's where like a lot of people have been dying. But then you have the freeze of the economy; everybody has to stay home, and so people in the
Mm-hmm.
south who are working in like hotels or other tourist places, they're not earning as much
Yeah.
money as before, and
With
so
the center.
it's the same thing here, in the United States. It's a freeze, and then they have to go to the store, and like straight up there having like raids, like just people like just storming the store and taking
Yeah.
stuff and
That's what
overwhelming
happened
police.
whenever this whole situation started. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like when people were like acting like, oh, there's nothing to worry about, it's not like okay, the disease, okay, you can probably get sick, and then like there's a low chance, but a still pretty high chance you could die from it. But for the most part,
Yeah.
if you're healthy and you're able to handle, you have a healthy immune system, you can handle it. But it's the effects on the society itself, and so that's what I was worried about, and that's what a lot of more sensible people are worried about. Um, because you have the supply chain and you have stuff like the postal service now. Like the postal
Mhm.
service is saying that they're gonna run out of money, possibly in June, September-ish. Like they're gonna run out of money
Yeah,
and
it's like a ticket
they're
bomb.
gonna have
It's
to
like,
get
okay,
bailed
this is
out.
gonna continue going.
Yeah, they're
Like
gonna
this
have
is
to
gonna
get
continue going for months, but you never know. Like, okay, but when exactly? Because okay, all these restaurants, they're gonna be like they don't are not doing as much as
yeah,
like as much money, or in general like corporation is like, okay, we can have enough for like 3 months or 4 months,
yeah,
but what if this stands for like a whole year? Like that can be a huge impact to the economy
yeah.
in general.
So we have a economic system where there's booms and busts, right? There's expansion and then there's a bubble burst and then the fallout from that. And what consistently happens is that the shareholders, when the bust occurs, they sell everything, or like they just all those stocks that they've accrued, all that value, once they realize that it's gonna deflate or it's just gonna crash, they buy it or they get all that money back. And so
Okay.
they of course have to make like cuts to like the staff or people. Um, just regular folks like you and me, where they're like, okay, you're laid off. Like, well, wait, like everything was just fine like a week ago. What are you talking about? Um,
Yeah.
and they'll talk about like, of course, personally, individually, you should be more mindful of your finances, but you also have to understand like people's wages haven't been increasing for like at least a decade. Like the minimum wage hasn't risen,
Yeah.
and it hasn't
Uh-huh.
been meeting the uh the standard of living for like several decades now.
Yeah.
So,
So
you
it was
know,
like, yeah, like you still paying me like 7.15 an hour, but my rent went up. Like compared from like 10 years from now, the rent was way more cheaper than now,
yeah,
and I'm still getting paid the same from like 10 years from now and now.
exactly. So it's those strains. So like we're already being paid less than what we should being paid, So because I
Yeah.
keep I hear from like people that I know, and they're right, like about like my spending, and I do try to be mindful of it. But at the same time, it's like, can I just live, or can I just like enjoy something at least, or because
Yeah,
I
can I
mean
just
we live in like a
please go buy
commodified.
my $50 water heater?
Yeah, like I'm not like an excessive person at all. So it's more just like um well, okay, I am in some fashion, but what I mean to say is like I'm not materialistic. Like I don't need like the newest shirts or the best shoes. So it's more just like
Oh yeah.
if I was being paid like a wage that was consistent with what the standard of living is now, you know, I would be in a much better shape. I would buy the stuff that okay, I can spend this, but then I have this left over that I can actually save on. Um,
Mm.
because
Besides
the
your
econ
needs, you also have like money left to like save up,
yeah,
you know?
the economy needs people, young people, to go out and be active and spend money. Like, because if everybody was going to follow the advice of don't spend and save, if young people did that, the economy would tumble like it is doing right now. Because like,
Yeah.
okay, we're following
Because
your
young people are not
advice.
going.
Yeah, like we're following your advice now. We're not spending. We're actually going to save now. Oh, guess what? All these like different industries are collapsing now, as they have been
Yeah, like
collapsing
tourism
before.
one is going down.
Yeah, they've been already been collapsing before because young people aren't spending as much as they should. But since now we're going to
Yeah.
listen to your advice of saving and no spending, now this like
This
Applebee's is
whole
gone
thing
now.
is gonna change the young
Yeah,
people's minds. Yeah.
yeah. So they're always going to blame young people, and not to say that we're without fault because there are like a lot of stupid young people that I've recently discovered. Um, but it's more just like there's an economic disadvantage for our generation, and like there's
Yeah.
you like I hear from people like not to name names, but like just people about their experiences in the past or like in say like the 70s or 80s. Okay, So in the 70s or 80s, and how they were growing up, and they put in the perspective of, oh, because things weren't as technologically advanced, things were rougher for me, and uh, that made me grow into so and so person. So, and in a way, that's true. Um, but then they're not like you don't have the same life experiences as I do, and you also don't see the same future as I do. Because when you were in the 80s and 70s, like, okay, things were hunky dory. I mean, you had the Cold War, which is pretty intense, but like for the most part, like by that point, people understood like there's not gonna be a war because like that you would destroy everything. Um, so now we're in 2020 where we're like, okay, so I've lived for 20 decades or 20 decades, 20 years. I've seen two towers collapse, two never-ending wars, two economic crashes, a pandemic, and now a global depression on the levels of the Great Depression, and also climate change.
Yeah.
Hey, so
And all the time, and we're still dealing with climate change.
yeah,
That's like probably like the worst thing. Like whenever like not trying to like get on like anyone's side right now, but I mean whenever what was it like 2 days ago when Bernie Sanders like dropped out of us of office, and on Tuesday whenever obviously Joe Biden started winning the Democrats votes and got more delegates than Bernie, I was like so upset because it's like okay, we're going through all this, we are seeing that we do need healthcare, like we need healthcare for all, and it's something
yeah,
obvious that we're seeing right now. We need higher pay, we need equal pay, we need all this, but you're still not voting for Bernie, who literally goes for all those, you know?
yeah. No, people, the thing about the politics in this country is that it's so far to the right that when you have somebody like Bernie come up who
People have
isn't that
too much
that
pride.
yeah, it's yeah. So when you have someone like Bernie Sanders come out who describes himself as a democratic socialist, uh, who
Yeah,
is just FDR, modern day FDR, probably an improved
yeah.
version of
They will
FDR.
scare people away,
Yeah,
which is dumb, but
it's
yeah.
just because when you talk to people and you don't mention Bernie Sanders at all, you don't mention any like leftist like keywords or anything. You just talk about the policy itself. Like, do you think people should have affordable healthcare? Of course, yeah. Okay, you think
Yeah.
education should be affordable and accessible to most people, or not just to most people, to everybody, children
Yeah.
especially? Oh yeah, obviously, yeah. Okay, all these different programs and policies they support, but then when you have Bernie Sanders, on the stage, it's just like
And they
their
go, whoa,
mind.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Whoa, whoa,
Or
okay,
like Cuba.
and
No, no, no.
I
Cuba's
don't
bad.
understand. I don't
Yeah.
understand because people are like legit afraid of him. And so like
Yeah.
they're okay, I understand the people who are afraid of him because there's a financial incentive. But then there's people who are afraid of him because they think he's like Stalin or Mao. Like they think he's gonna
Yeah.
line people up on walls and like
Like you're
like
scared of
it's
him, but you're not scared of Trump.
yeah. But it's like and no, like these are people that they hate Trump, but then they see somebody like Bernie Sanders and you're like, oh, he's too extreme.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he's not extreme enough. Like that's how there's no real like class consciousness or
It's
like
like
there's no
the
there's no
perfect level of going extreme, but not so harsh
yes, I mean like
because you know.
he's clearly an activist organizer, like he's clearly somebody who's been fighting for decades consistently on the same
Yeah,
issue. Like you
whole
can pull up
life. Yeah.
any video, like okay, I don't understand how this is not like a qualification because Joe Biden supported the Iraq war and Bernie didn't.
Yeah.
So like okay,
Yeah.
like
You
that's a
always
fact.
have to check out the background. Yeah.
Like that's a fact. And you could bring it up to you can bring it up to Biden supporters and that won't register or they'll make an excuse for that. But it's like you're gonna vote for a guy who legit or I probably not legitimately believed it, but he was willing to go on stage and say, yes, absolutely, I support invading Iraq because they pose a threat to us, which they didn't, obviously. But now you're going to put that man in charge of our nuclear weapons. And like, I'm actually more worried about Joe Biden getting us into a war now in hindsight than I am with Trump, because Trump, obviously, we've had
Yeah.
close calls, but like, he's not going to go all the way, or at least not yet. He hasn't. But Joe Biden, like, I actually don't know if he has that kind of control, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, plus, not to mention, I mean, I don't want to disrespect the man because, like, there's many things I respect about him. But then again, now
Yeah,
there's
of course.
rape allegations. So, like, I can't respect that at all. So, like, it's just like, there's some things that I did like about him, and now that I know this aspect of him, it's just like, okay, well, never mind. Um, but now his brain is melting, like he has dementia. So like, or I mean, I can't diagnose him, but like, there's clearly like some kind of lag cognitively, So I
Yeah,
don't know.
there's just something going on there.
Have you seen like any of his speeches, or like have you seen where he was talking about like him being in like a have you seen him
I
talk in
actually have not
recently?
seen his pictures right now.
Yeah, it's just like when you hear him talk, it's just like, okay, something's clearly off because like he's talking about like, talk about the pool
Like he's
hair
talking
that
about something
bleaches.
else. He's like, wait.
I don't know. You just have to see it, and I'm pretty sure most people listening to this have seen it, or they're going to look it up right now. Um, but it's just like you can look up many compilations about his mannerisms, and like you can make comparisons between during Obama's years, which was like 12 years ago, surprisingly,
Yes.
and then you see it now, and it's like, okay, there's clearly been a shift. So yeah, and the thing is that the Democratic establishment, they're gonna put Biden up there because he's easy to control. Because, like as I said,
They always have one. Yeah, because imagine trying to control Bernie, like that would have
no,
not been
you're
easy.
not gonna control
And
him.
that's why it's like the DNC, it's definitely not something I fully support. It's not saying like, oh, Democrats suck or whatever, but I mean, you can see it through history. Like, even whenever it was like Trump against Hillary, like, I was definitely kind of going like, why would you do that? Like, and then after that, everybody was like, oh my god, why did we even like choose Hillary?
Yeah,
Because everybody's saying that if it was Bernie against Trump, they would have definitely voted for Bernie as an
absolutely. Yeah,
option.
there are people who voted for Bernie in the primaries, and then when Hillary got nominated, they're like, hell no, and they voted for Trump just for that, wild card. Because
Just for the part,
it,
yeah.
yeah, it's just like, yeah. So when people are legit, because look, okay, so here's the point that I should make, because I think a lot of people got deflated when they heard about Bernie Sanders, but there's a correction that should be made. So he suspended his campaign, so he's not going to be campaigning and rallying as before, but he's still going to be on the ballot, so people can still vote for him.
Okay.
So people can still vote for him, and he can still gain delegates, and he can at least have some kind of leverage in the convention, which believe is in August now. They've delayed it, so it was originally in July, but then they put it for August. Um, but so yeah, so he's still in it, but it's just like, I don't know, because people got really discouraged. Look, when I read it initially,
And once
like
you
I
have the
wasn't.
pandemic, people were getting really discouraged to even go out and vote because now you have to be
Yeah.
doing the whole online thing, and people just find it really complicated. And I feel like that's something that also affected him during Tuesday.
Mhm.
That
Yeah, that was.
people, or some people don't have access to internet that way, or just in general access, easy
Yeah.
access. So going to schools or any other voting poll was like their only option.
Yeah. So I mean, have you read up about the Wisconsin debacle, like what happened there?
Yes, whenever they were pulling up.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. So the decision to hold the elections, or at least have the mail-in ballots, they went to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court,
Okay.
and they voted that the votes should be done in person. But here's the funny thing: the Supreme Court
Yeah.
justices, they made that decision through video chat, like remotely. So they were voting remotely to make the decision to make people to vote in Wisconsin in person. So that really shows you
That's
the
like
state.
pure hypocrite.
That really shows you the state of affairs. And I don't understand why enough people aren't pissed off about like our democratic process being like pulled under the
Yeah,
rug.
there's actual proof of like the Republicans saying that if that if any of the laws actually go through that people are not allowed to vote in person, it's gonna hurt them. So
Exactly.
they're really, yeah, like there's actual proof of even like them
It's
saying
look,
it.
if this was happening in Mexico, just right on the border, if there was, with this pandemic happening and there were people saying, we can't vote in person, and then the ruling party or a ruling party said, no, 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 you have to vote in person because if you do it through mail and it's easier for everybody, we're gonna lose. So it's like, this is clearly a coup. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is clearly a power grab, what you're doing. And you're going to use this virus, this epidemic, to basically hold people hostage in their own homes because they can't vote. Or, I mean, like, if they're going to vote, they're going to have to risk their life. So they're going to be like, honey, I'm going to
It's
vote.
either
Like,
voting for your rights or
yeah, it's just like, because they've been doing this for years. Okay, here's the interesting thing, because some years back, the Supreme Court actually voted or made a decision at least on the Civil Rights Voting Act, and they said, okay, well, it's no longer needed. And it's like, wait, what? Like, like that just happened randomly. Like people just woke up one morning and they just realized the one thing that was protecting their right to vote just got removed, and now you see the mess that we're in right now. So, I mean,
like
like.
on the worst timing. Yeah.
So like I mean like this is still a free country at least right now, so I can still say this, but this is a coup. This is a power grab. Um like the Republicans are clearly fascists. Like I don't know what else to say because like their behavior, their their maneuvering, their political maneuverings are clearly demonstrating that. And I mean that is not to say that they're Nazis because Nazis are very specific and it's just like they haven't talked about like Jews or race, relations yet, but it's still like it's authoritarian power grabs. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Um, and that's my point that I was making earlier about the post service, because that's gonna run out and that's gonna have to be managed in some way. And now they're talking about privatizing the U.S. Postal Service, so it would just be like another version of FedEx or Amazon, So it,
Yeah.
like these corporations now are going to take over every aspect of our service and they're going to pull every nickel and dime that they can. Um, so, I mean, this is how the US turns into a corporatocracy, I guess that's how you call it. And we have elections because we like to think that we're free, but clearly we're not. And then if you talk
But we're
about
not.
it,
It's just,
yeah. And then
yeah.
if you talk about it, you're an alarmist, or you're a radical, bruh. So
Radical, don't say
no,
that.
you're a doomer. You can't talk about that. Like, okay, well, I don't know what else to tell you. Um, but yeah.
Which is pretty much
So
the
that's
rice are being taken because we don't want to get sick.
yeah. Oh, wait, my rats or what'd you say?
Or like our rights are being taken because we don't want to get sick. But
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's okay.
yeah, the government is never gonna put a good crisis to waste. They're gonna. I mean, that's the thing though, because like if
Um,
this happened, look,
like
because it's
they're
not.
taking good advantage of this whole situation.
Yeah, but this isn't an exclusively like a Republican thing, because like I bet if this happened, okay, well, first off, under Obama, like this would have never happened. At least the level of this outbreak, because we would have been prepared. Like we were prepared for Zika, we were prepared for Ebola, like people were like swine flu, like people were legit afraid. We had three epidemics, pandemics, and we just dodged that like the Matrix, So now
I like nothing. Yeah.
yeah, so now, I mean, the US has the worst outbreak in the world, so we're number one. Um, we're
Yay!
gonna
Because we
have
love number
yeah,
one.
we're gonna have the most amount infected, and
uh-huh.
I mean, I wouldn't say
Most
we'd have
amount of infected, most amount of deaths.
yeah,
So far, yes.
I wouldn't say we'd have the most amount of deaths, because where it's going to be pretty low because we have at least a hospital system that is going to sustain it. Well, it's still early, so right now we have the most,
Yeah.
but there's projections that I saw like places like Bangladesh, which if people get infected
And
out there, it's going to be a massacre. So it's really just it just depends on like each individual country's like medical system. But when it comes to first world quotation, first world countries, developed countries in the US, we're gonna have it bad. Uh, but yeah.
Yeah, like
Uh,
I've actually one of my sisters, she's married to like someone from Honduras,
mm,
and he's like talking about how they're literally just like people don't even like there's no actual anybody even going to the houses to pick up their bodies. Like people that
yeah.
are dying right now.
So
Well,
people
it's
dying in the
literally like their
streets.
families are yeah, like people are dying on the streets. Like there was a story that he told me that this guy literally just put his like I think it was his dad in a bag and took him out because the smell was already so strong because
Yeah,
he's been there for like days,
yeah.
like just decomposing there, and it's just crazy.
That's messed up.
And yeah, but like pretty much like people are dying in streets, and also like well, in Mexico it's not bad either, but what is going on is that people are getting sick and they're going to the hospitals and they're not diagnosing them. They're not telling that they're sick with like the COVID-19. They're being like, oh, you have like strep throat, you have the flu and stuff like that. They're
Yeah,
so that's why Mexico says that they don't have COVID-19 cases because they're saying that they have the flu, but actually it's just they're just not doing the correct thing by saying that it's actually COVID-19.
yeah, exactly. So like they're mismanaging it and they're saying, "Oh, well, you have this and that," and then the person is going to spread
Yeah,
it. So
it's
yeah,
like
it's
okay,
really
okay, I have,
it's a silent war because you're going to have populations that are just going to be completely isolated and they're going to be ravaged by the outbreak and
mm-hmm,
nobody can get to them because all the cities are overwhelmed. So it's like, well, we can't help you out, so you're on your own. Um, I'm trying
pretty
to,
much.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get her to go in my hand, but she's nervous. One of my rats. All right. Well, yeah, like I was just reading about like the Amazon population, and there's some tribes in the Amazon forest where there's these tribes have been not been contacted at all. They have no idea that there's a world outside of the jungle, right? So
Yeah,
if somehow they come into contact, which they usually do, with a population that has been exposed to this virus, COVID-19, these isolated tribes are just going to be ravaged because like they're not susceptible to the same diseases as we are. Um, they're gonna just be wiped out essentially. So there's a real fear, and actually there has been a couple cases in these tribes. So it's it's gonna be an inevitability. So I mean
it really is.
yeah, I mean again the no human has an immunity to this virus at all. So it'll be interesting for well, I shouldn't say I keep saying that word interesting. It's gonna be sad because you have a population that has no knowledge about what's happening, and honestly, they don't care because they have everything they need, and then just this outside force just comes in and ravages their community. So that's gonna be sad. And it's also sad because they live in Brazil, under the control of Bolsonaro, and he's basically like a Brazilian Trump. I think he's actually worse than Trump. He's just like
Yes, I've
he's
actually heard about that one. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, he's a Brazilian Trump, but just the good thing is they don't have nukes. That's really it. But
Yeah. That's
he's
the
like
only
he basically
advantage that
said
we have.
something along the lines of like, "Oh, well, Brazilians were exposed to all kinds of diseases, so this coronavirus is nothing." Like it's like, "Oh, well,
What?
thanks for
Oh,
illustrating how thanks for, basically saying that your people live in dirty conditions or not that they do, but like, you have
I mean,
places like you have places like Rio or like the favela, like
yeah,
where
like
it's like,
which is like the wealthy people, and then like which is like where you keep the tourists, and then you look
around it, and it's like just people living with 3 walls
Yeah.
and like no beds or like nothing like that. It's like horrible the conditions that they live.
Yeah.
It's not
So
their fault. It's just that the government doesn't manage it well, obviously.
yeah, exactly. It's completely corrupted and mismanaged. But like it's
Yeah.
funny. I don't know how you read this. So like the government, of course, or I wouldn't say like completely because I think now they're starting to make some changes. But for the most
Yeah.
part, at least early on, they just weren't taking it seriously. And so
Yeah.
the local gangs and militias, that's what they are. These local militias in the favelas,
Mm-hmm.
they were making announcements like, okay, after 8 o'clock, nobody's outside. Like, like that's what they're saying. So these crime gangs have to step in and be like, no, we're going to enforce this quarantine. So, and it's just funny
Okay.
how, because everybody likes to vilify organized crime, and rightfully so, these cartels or these organized crime syndicates. But in many respects, like when the government can't step in and opt for some kind of like order or authority, that's when organized crime steps in, and because they have, well, first off, they have lots of money like on hand, like it's not always in the bank, like they have it somewhere in like a vault, so they can give people cash, like, oh, here, take this.
Yeah.
And also like um it's just they have the muscle. Usually they have some kind of street, you know, gang, or they have street muscle, and they're not afraid to use force because there's not going to be like some oversight committee. Like, no, they're going to use force when they need to, if they have to, make sure. In this case, a pandemic, they're trying to step in as like the community police or something like that. So, yeah. Um, and that happened in Brazil, and some similar aspect happened in Italy, as I was saying, when there people were like just struggling to make some cash, then organized crime stepped in, like, here's some work for you, or here's some jobs for you. So yeah, so when that's what you see usually when economic breakdowns occurs, people turn to crime to make ends meet because they
Yeah.
still have bills to pay, and obviously the bank doesn't give a shit. Like, look at my place that I'm living at.
Obviously,
Yeah,
corporations doesn't give a.
yeah, they don't care. And it's like it's so funny. Everybody's supposedly living paycheck to paycheck, bill to bill, and it's just like, okay, so nobody's managing their finances. Okay, that's wonderful, but it's my fault. Okay, it's
That's
my
their
fault.
fault. It's like, oh,
They always want to
shit.
blame the
Okay, I'm
little.
sorry. I was before this. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I couldn't save for
Yeah,
any of this.
exactly. What 6 months preserve? Because
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's pretty much how they judge people. They're saying that, oh, why didn't you save? But it's like, okay, but before this, I had to literally work every single day, paycheck to pay this
yeah,
bill. But now they laid me off, and now I'm trying to like figure it all out. Like that's what people are so mad about. I've have like because since I've always been working like with the food industry, I do have a couple of friends that being like servers, and right now the servers are the ones being mostly um like they're being hurt by this whole decision because obviously they closed everything off. They leave off tips because
yeah,
servers leave off tips. Like they don't have a paycheck waiting for like a last paycheck because they leave off like
yeah,
the tips were the what they were living off. So they have like people like they're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and talk to like my the office, like the apartment office, and see if they're doing like at least a month that I don't have to like pay or so.
yeah,
And but all of them were like, oh, they only gave me 2 weeks, and they told me that I still had to pay it after that, and they were gonna have like late fees, or at least there were some people that were like not doing any late fees, at
yeah.
least
There's a
their
lot like
money still has to go through. Yeah.
it's it's yeah, and you see a lot of people defending the landlords or these,
Yeah.
they like it's not that okay. Everybody, of course, has to pay their bills. Every business has to pay their dues. Like, it's not that, okay? But it's in a situation like this, it's on the government not the people to foot the bill. You know, it like I'm literally like the only jobs that I can do right now is like delivery, and so that's a gig work job, and that's not gonna net me that much income. Um, Plus, like, I can't go out and spend anything. Like, I'm not supposed to. I can only go like groceries or anything like that. So like when you're looking at a a business like, say, landlords, okay, so the tenants aren't working and they have to save up everything. They're not working as much and they're not earning as much as before. First off, we can talk a little bit more about workers' income and how that should be compensated. But right now we're talking more about the landlords. So the landlords, since they're not, these tenants, they can't pay the bills as much as they could before. And it's not because, oh, I don't want to pay. It's literally because I can't work right now and I'm not getting paid as I used to. So how do you expect me to pay like a regular bill when clearly things aren't regular? There should be like a stimulus or some kind of grant from some kind of government body, from the state or from the federal government, that makes up for that. So it's like, okay, so now we're getting stimulus from so and so you don't have to pay as much, you can pay half, so the answer to this obviously is some socialism. So like I'm sorry guys, like
like
you're
now we're
already,
talking about socially.
yeah, like you're already seeing it. Like, look, the government has to pay those people. Like, that relief check, want to know why it passed unanimously? Because if they didn't pass it, people would literally be rioting right now. There would be a complete breakdown of society because people now, they're going to get evicted, and like the government's not going to help me at all. What? Like, so fuck it. I'm going to, break shit, so
Like, what taxes have I been paying?
exactly. So they have to,
gonna get
like, they have to do the UBI. They have to send out those checks, because if they don't, society breaks down. Like, so I'm sorry. Hey, socialism saved our ass for this little split second, and we have a complete marathon in front of us. So maybe we should change little things. Maybe we should, I don't know, completely destroy capitalism. Oops.
Oops.
So,
he said it.
hey, so who knows? So, I mean, I'm no economist, or it's just like, not like,
I don't have the experience yet.
I clearly don't have the experience. But when you listen to people calmly and logically explain it, and then you see it play out, it's like, hello, yeah, obviously. So when you hear these other arguments, it's always these people who are just defending these billionaires because secretly they want to be a part of that club, or I don't know. Like, there's a lot of people entrenched in this.
Right now, I see a lot of that too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people entrenched in this just idea of like just accumulating wealth, and I mean just materialism in general. Like, people, they think the only goal in life is just to make money, and that's not it. I mean, that's just like, it's.
I mean, that is on anyone. Like, okay, if your goal, like, it just depends on like their viewpoint. Okay, if your goal is to make this much money, okay, like, that's yours.
Yeah.
But we do live in a society, and I mean, if you made it to the top of the stairs, you have to get yourself involved, and just like saying like how we were fighting for the billionaires to pay their fair share,
Exactly.
It's kind of like the same situation. Okay,
like,
if you got yourself out there, you have to pay your share, and that's it.
Yeah, it's I like this quote because you see like a lot of these like right-wing individuals, and they're heavily Christian and heavily religious, and they're rich, they have lots of money, and they're willing to defend. Oh well, they're pretty much like, they're basically saying that like their wealth was preordained, or like, oh well, God favors me because obviously I'm rich. But it's like, when you look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, like, my favorite quote from him is like, it's far easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. And so that's like, that's not something that they would listen to, or that's like it just kind of goes out one end and out the other. So um, there's many respects that with wealth is tied with this faith of like prosperity. There's like an actual
Yeah.
movement. So you see like a lot of these different pastors who are, you know, that before this pandemic, they were like just legit insane, and they were just like, you better give me your money now. And like they're just looking at the camera, like they're completely
Yeah.
deranged. They're
Yeah, like
completely
they're more like
deranged.
I think like 80s or 90s.
I'm sorry?
I think they're like from like the 80s or 90s. There is a actual case that like a couple of like they like send them to jail because they will make like like how they will appear on the TV and they were like, oh my god, buy or special Bibles with this like monthly subscription and everything, and they ended up going to jail for plagiarism, for using a religion just to get money, which is actually just fake stuff. Not like the religion is fake, but they were just, I guess, using the name or the religion just for their own benefit.
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely very easy to trick people with faith because
Yeah.
people,
Oh
they
yeah, they were
people.
trying to get wealthy to and using the church so they don't pay taxes. That's why.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They try to cheat, and once you cheat the IRS, no, 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 no. So yeah, well, but my point with the prosperity preachers now is like you have these I don't know any of their names, and I don't need to know them. But like
Yeah.
they're
I put
basically
names.
being told now, because now people can't go to those services, and that's how they get their money when people go to their services, because to get them all riled up. Oh, give me $10, give me $5, give me something, like like they just they rile them up, and they're passing the basket around.
Yeah.
So you'll see these preachers now, they're like, keep coming to my service, you better keep coming, or they're trying to like, they're
You're
basically like
like, why are you
they're
scared of?
blackmailing. Yeah, like they're obviously afraid because that's how they make their money. So like when people can't come in and spend or give them donate essentially, uh, that's how they're gonna lose money, because I don't know, these guys live lavishly, so there's no way that they save up anything. Um, it's also like we're in the
Completely
middle.
wealthy life.
Yeah, we're in the middle of an economic. It's gonna be a depression. It's gonna be a complete crash. Things are okay right now, but once summer rolls around, whoo! Once that heat sets
Yeah,
in,
'cause
once
they're
that heat
adding
sets in,
months.
dude, once that heat sets in and people can't pay their energy bills as before, and that AC goes out, yeah. So, um,
I'm gonna be like,
yeah, that's another, uh, that's gonna be down the road. Um, but yeah, these prosperity teachers
girls
are.
are gonna get mad.
I'm sorry.
And I'm like, summer girls are gonna get mad.
Oh yeah, that hot girl summer. Yeah, no.
The hot girl summer, they're gonna freak out. No.
Ah, but it's just interesting because you see, like, when you see in a time of crisis, you see people's true nature like come out. So, you know,
Yeah.
luckily, like right now, things are pretty easy. So, or at least in where we're at
Yeah,
this point.
we're in the
Um,
beginning. Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
think
this
so.
is very, very much the beginning. This is still very early on, and people are going to be in the pinch, and then you're going to really see how they're going to behave and how they're going to react. And I like to think that I'd be a very charitable person, a helpful person. But then again, when if it's me or mine, like it's going to be mine. Like what I'm saying. Like, it, yeah.
Yeah,
But of course, like the whole the whole way we get through this is cooperation and community. So that's how anybody gets through any kind of crisis. But I don't think we have that national community. It depends on like your small town, but now it's going to be like the states have to help each other out. And so we're in an
yeah,
interesting position because I think this is being overlooked, and it's you have the national stockpile, right? And you have all this equipment and the ventilators, the personal protection, face masks, face shields, all the stuff that these states need. Well, what's happening is they're doing bidding. So like you have like FEMA or the all the different emergency relief centers that are in control of the
Yeah.
supplies. They're having bidding wars with the states. So the states are competing with each other. They're also competing with the federal government. They're and whoever can spend the most wins. So usually the wealthy states are going to win. Or if what I'm also seeing is that like the federal government is outbidding the bluer states, so that way they can give the supplies to the red states, because that's how
Mhm.
if they help out the red states, then they can at least win for the election. This is
I
not the
know what
time.
you mean.
This is not
Yeah.
the time for partisanship, and yet they're still finding a way to well, let's cut these guys because they're not on our team, but like we're on the same team,
Yeah,
guys.
and before this even happened, we were getting, well, we've always been, but as soon as like Trump hit office, you could completely see the divided living of like the red states and the blue states.
Yeah,
More of, not gonna say like favoritism, but the city, like the people were getting more divided
yeah. And so like you
between
can you can
parties,
clearly
of course.
see, yeah, you can clearly see that there's a favoritism, like, you know, because you have
Well,
the status quo, you have the position in power, and
and
they, of
more
course
than
they
the
want,
Trump office. Yeah.
yeah, so they have the status quo, and then if they sense that, oh, this person might be a radical, or I don't know, like there was a case where I got pulled over
Hmm.
a couple weeks back, and so like it was like I didn't turn on my lights, so like my tail lights were out, but then of course I had to switch them on.
Hmm.
But they just gave me a warning. But they saw like a sticker that I had, and the sticker is like it's from the Socialist Rifles Association. So it's just like a sticker or like an emblem, and it has like a couple rounds. But it's
Uh,
like, yeah, but it's nothing like threatening. It's just like, a little bumper sticker. But then like they kind of took notice to that, and they're like, "Oh, well, what is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's Socialist Rifle Association." And they're like, interesting." But like you can clearly see like anything that's like left leaning or socialist, that's suspect. And then like
yeah. They're gonna be pointing fingers at you.
yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm not a threat, but you guys are gonna clearly treat me like one because I think differently, or I don't know. Like there's a lot of fear-based tactics and politics behind it. So
Yeah,
they,
because like no matter how much on the right side they are, and how tough they want to seem, they are completely fearful of the left side, of
yeah,
more like of a socialist. If you go to like a conservative person and you like start like talking about socialists, they're definitely completely like freak out, kind of like with Bernie Sanders. Like
yeah,
everybody
exactly.
was like freaking out.
Well, because they point to the extremes of the left, and they point to like say Pol Pot, or they point to Mao or Stalin, which like I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not gonna say no, they didn't kill those people, because clearly they did, and they combined, those people killed more people than Hitler, like just not even close. So yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
there's definitely a real argument to be made about the genocidal tendencies of the left. That definitely exists, but I'm not that. Obviously, I don't support that. So there's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, I would never condone that sort of action. Um, but it's more just like, obviously nobody wants that. So, if that does get out of control, then yes, we would be on the same side to stop that. Or, like we're not there. I just want people to have health care. That's it. I just want people
Yeah, like,
to, like, I just
this
want basic human
situation.
rights. Like, I
Uh-huh.
want basic human rights, and you automatically take that to the worst human rights crimes committed. Like, whoa, like that's so it really shows. I mean, it's a lack of understanding, because most people aren't going to read into the history of the Soviet Union, because they've already been told
Yeah.
it. So they're just going to be like, well, obviously, red guy bad, so oh well.
Yes.
It's interesting, at
It's
least.
just like politics. Like there's some people that don't have time to look into it, so they're just gonna go towards what they see the most.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like
the media has,
thing media. Like that's why people got so scared of Bernie, because they don't really have the time. Like more like doing this not this situation, but like before, like people are just too busy with like going to work because that's what we have to be doing in order to survive. So no one has, and more people that don't work for any political related stuff, they don't have the time to look towards that because they have to go to work for any other thing like accounting, like any like restaurants or anything in general. Like they don't have time to be concentrated on something else unless they're
Yeah.
actually involved in like politics.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it's very hard to like organize people and activate them because
Yeah.
they're living day to day. And like, and I talk to people and I try to get them involved and they're like, I can't because I'm doing this and that. And I'm like, why do you think that? Why do you think you can't focus on the important issue because you got all these bills? Because that's the way they made it. Because they want you to be
Yeah.
they want you to be concerned about your immediate survival rather than the long-term survival,
They actually
which
try to have to make Super Tuesday like a voting day, like day off for everybody,
mhm,
so the working people can go and vote. But that's obviously like something that the Republican, or at least their side, kind of worry about, because if more working people go out and vote, they're obviously gonna go towards the blue state. I mean the blue
yeah,
state, the blue parties.
yeah, higher turnout is. I mean, they're saying there's a saying that that goes that reality has a liberal bias. It is mainly
Yes.
just like if you're more in tune with reality, then it's not even like a left thing. It's just objective. So if you just observe things
Yeah, in
objectively,
general.
if you observe
Uh-huh.
things objectively, then on the political compass, okay, well, it just happens to be left. Uh, but I mean, I'm not to say that like conservatism doesn't have its merits. It's just like this idea of no money, like just there's a scene in They Live, which is have you heard of that movie They Live?
No, I haven't. I
So
should
it's
watch it
like
though.
it's by John Carpenter. You've probably seen like maybe a clip of it, but it
uh,
features he's like a famous
I'll
character
look
or
it up.
he's like a professional wrestler. I'm gonna have to look this up because I should know this. Um, so yeah, so it's a 1988 sci-fi horror film, and it's directed by John Carpenter. And so Roddy Piper, who is like a pro wrestler in the time, he is basically just like a homeless wanderer person. And then he finds these
Yeah.
glasses, and he kind of sees the world like as its true form. So he's like
Oh shit.
he'll put on shades, he'll take his shades off, and he'll see like an ad, and then he'll put the shades
Look.
back on, like a
Yeah.
Coca-Cola ad. He'll put them on, and it'll be like consume, or like they'll see an ad, and it's like
Whoa.
they'll see like an ad when it'll be like, oh, there's like a couple with a baby, and then they puts the glasses on, and then it's like reproduce, like so those subliminal
Yeah.
messages that you get through advertising or just our capitalist society. He's seeing it for real, and he's like, oh my goodness. And then he's also seeing the higher class people. They're like these alien people, and also the police
Oh,
are
really?
also
Yeah, I
yeah
saw one of the pictures.
yeah. So that's the basic premise of it. But like my whole point being that like you can see that now, or you can at least like once you finally like that woke point in your life where you put those
Yeah.
glasses on and you're like, oh, okay,
More or less
like
like us, young people, and like that. I mean, not that all young people are like the same, and they like our generation sees the same way.
uh-huh.
Because I know I have like different friends, and we have like different incomes. Like more because
Hmm.
I've worked. I have friends from like the Woodlands, and it's a really wealthy
Yeah.
environment over there. So I became friends with the president's son, and we both had like completely different point of views. Like I had to like work for all my stuff. I'm not saying that he doesn't work for his stuff, but he can get material stuff or like a position like easier than
Mhm.
myself, you know.
Mhm.
Like I had to go and like interview for the job position. His dad pretty much like gave him that position, you know, because he's the
Yeah.
president of like the company. And we would talk, and we obviously have like different points of view. But as like myself, a working person, and being of this generation, I have this whole point of view of, yeah, like it's messed up that we don't have free healthcare because I can't live off of my parents' healthcare because, you know, like I can be there. Like I'm over 18 now. I'm like living off on myself, or like there's like some people is like they were living off their parents' healthcare, but
Yeah.
they kicked them out, and now they don't have any healthcare, so
Yeah.
they're living off with themselves. You know, like that's a type of situation, and that's kind of like we're being forced to see the reality, and that's how we all see it now.
Yeah.
You know,
So I
like we
mean,
see all this stuff on TV, we're like, this all bullshit.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, exactly. So you see a lot of people who have grown well, like they're well-meaning, but they've lived a privileged life and they just haven't experienced as much.
Yeah,
So, they're well-meaning, so of course they believe in like hard work, but at the same time it's like you already had your foot in the door to begin with. So you might be a hard worker, and I'm not saying you're not, but you already had your foot in the door. And
yeah,
compared to me who has to like rise through a lot, and I have to set like the amount of networking you have to make. And also, I mean, they say like it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's a real thing. So if you're obviously your father
that's
is in a
real. Yeah,
yeah, if your father is in a position that he's literally like a president of a company, like he can hook you up with anybody, so it's
yeah.
yeah, there's
Like
definitely
you
a
can become my
generational
manager any day.
yeah, so there's definitely a generational shift. Or I think a lot more people in this generation are a little mindful, um, because there's just more exposure at least, and there's more immediacy, especially with like social media and such. Because like you look back to like say 50 years ago, you know for the most part, like interclass like relations, like that would never happen like that, or there would still be like some kind of like, oh well, I'm obviously the president's son, so like you like it's definitely like when you look at like medieval shows where like there's class divides, it's still there. Like they never went away, so it's just more money involved at least.
Oh, hello?
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
still
I'm
hear me?
sorry. Yeah, you went silent for a bit. I was just kind of talking ad nauseum. Are you all right?
Oh no, yeah, I was like, no, yeah, I'm listening. Um, I'm not like seeing like looking at your red, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's very true. Like, you know, like more like this whole generation is because we are having to be working day to day more. I feel like we're pretty independent up to this point. There is, I see a lot of my friends that they, you know, obviously whenever they go to college, they had to leave, you know, either like campus or like their apartment. And um you know, we see more day-to-day stuff, and more whenever you just work on a regular job, like on a 9 to 5 job, or restaurant wise, whenever you actually have to work for what you get and the position that you're working for.
yeah,
It's like I got myself here, and I've seen all this stuff that I'm still getting paid, you know, kind of like equal pay, or getting only 7.15 an hour. It's more of also like what we're living on right now, that we're having all these essential workers, and we're still paying them not enough.
yeah.
Like
You
we're
see,
still
like,
paying 7.15. I mean, if they're essential, if they're that essential, shouldn't we paying them more than we are right now?
yeah, hello, like maybe that $15 would help out. Who knows? Um, so
Yeah, I was like, oh, guess what's going on with your non-experienced workers?
yeah, it's just funny though, because you're gonna see like a lot of ads now where it's like like McDonald's or like some kind of corporation, Walmart, where it's like, oh, well, during these trying, you're gonna see that a lot. I think you've probably seen it, where it's like during these trying times, these
Yeah,
difficult
I see.
and uncertain
Yeah.
times ahead of us. It's like, I just, it's pandering, it's patronizing because it's treating people like they can't see the
Like you're getting
chaos.
sick.
It's like, oh, did you know that we're in the midst of a pandemic slash economic depression? Oh, really? I didn't know. Like, like it, they're gonna be making parodies of these commercials for like decades, like, because this is just like,
Forever. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, kind of like how they're making like of like, have you seen those like famous people singing "Imagine" by John
Oh,
Lennon?
oh my God, yeah, that's all that. Yeah, that was cringy. Actually never like saw the
I
full
didn't even
clip.
watch it because I didn't want to give myself like secondhand embarrassment,
Mhm.
but just by reading the comments and also seeing like other people's reaction, kind of was like, yeah, like I don't even, or just in general, like famous people being like, oh my god, being stuck at home feels like prison. Like I know Ellen made a comment
Yeah.
about how he feels like she's in prison right now.
Well,
But
this pandemic has really demonstrated how useless some celebrities are. Like they're just like,
yeah,
what do you do again? Like I'm not saying that like people can't like entertain and they can't like be in the business, but there's just some people who are just like, you're taking up our space. Like you're I don't know, you're taking up my timeline space. Get off. Like um
entirely.
yeah, but like that's really their only contribution to society. It's just like a tweet, just like, oh, here's something
Yeah.
witty. Here, buy my product. Here, did you see that like Kim Kardashian? They try to like sell like a survival kit or like some kind of emergency coronavirus prep
Oh
kit,
my god, I
but like,
I don't really follow the Kardashians, but yeah, I heard a lot about them
yeah, like
lately.
I don't know. I mean, I've been seeing. Okay, here's the weird thing, because like now I don't know if you've seen these ads, but now that I go on, Instagram, I'll see like an ad for body armor or some like survival gear, which like before I had never searched up or like never saw, but it's like on Instagram. I'm like, wait, like why am I getting ads for like a face mask or like, oh, a gas mask, or like literally like doomsday prepper
Wait,
equipment.
really?
Yeah, for like my ads on Instagram, I'm getting like ads for just like all this like camo military equipment. I'm just like, I have not been seeing this. Like literally when they announced like the state of emergency, that's when I started seeing it. So, I mean, not to say that I've never looked at that sort of thing, but it just shifted overnight. Like, I don't know. So I don't know if you've seen anything like that, and I'm sure more people have seen stuff like that, but it's just like, okay,
Uh,
there's clearly like been a
I think
surge
that's
in
the question.
demand.
I think that's the question. If like anyone who will listen has ever seen their suggestions feed, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
like
like they sometimes are
suggestions.
like suggestion feed like on your Instagram whenever you're like scrolling
Yeah.
down, or like even Facebook. It does get pretty creepy because like we will like be talking about something and
Mhm.
like I don't know where it just pops out on my feed, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stop
Yeah,
talking.
it's very invasive, but it just creeped me out because it just happened like literally like overnight. Because before you just see like regular
Yeah.
ads, and then next thing you know, I'm seeing ads for, like gloves and like just
I
like
have
just like
seen a lot
survival
of
equipment.
like survival equipment. I'm seeing like survival equipment, just kind of like the essentials for like I've seen a lot of like hand sanitizer,
Yeah.
um, like suggestions or like just face masks in general. I've
Yeah.
actually been making my own face mask
Okay. Like what
for like
materials?
you know with materials. Usually use it for like shirts and use like coffee filters.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I've also like I want to get like going uh they have like a do-it-yourself gas mask you can put on that it's like a soda bottle and then you put like a soda can, you duct tape it, or before you duct tape it, you put some holes in it, you put like activated charcoal and some cotton swabs, and then you duct tape it on the bottle. And so it kind of like it fits on your face and it can like I've seen it people do experiments on it where they'll make the mask and then they'll put themselves in the room and like activate like a tear gas canister inside this room and then they'll still struggle with the mask on but it's like they'll actually be able to breathe, so uh that's something that I would want to look into. But yeah, like a lot of do it yourself like survival equipment I've been trying to research on.
that doesn't sound bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
Um,
yeah, I mean, so like you said, you're getting ads for like, medical equipment or hygiene equipment. I'm just like straight up getting
yeah.
like military gear. I'm like, I've never looked that up, but thanks, I guess.
I
But
think
yeah,
it's a suggestion to look forward to.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Because like I would consider myself a prepper, but it's more just like I don't want to, because there's some people who like are actually like looking forward to it. So here's the thing, the terminology that you should
Other,
look out for. So what they refer to it is called a boogaloo or the boogaloo. So that's what you should I don't know if you heard something like that before.
mhm.
The boogaloo.
I've actually haven't.
So
The
okay,
Boogaloo?
yeah. So it kind of stems from a joke, like an online joke where they say uh whenever you do like a sequel to a movie, so like say so before they would say like
Like
incredible
the far right slang for Civil War?
yeah, yeah, so it's or like some kind of massive civil unrest, but like
Yeah.
it stems from the terminology of like making a sequel of the movie, and you say like Superman 2 Electric Boogaloo or something like that. So basically the whole joke would be the Civil War 2 Electric Boogaloo or something like that. So that's what
Oh, shit.
yeah, so that's what some people have said. I mean, I don't know because it's
Yeah,
just
like
like
uprising against the government.
yeah. So I mean, you'll hear that terminology, and then it's like I don't know if they either condone it or it's more just like ah well, I mean, shit's gonna hit the fan anyway. Here's the boogaloo. So
Yeah,
yeah. So that's gonna be an
like,
interesting
you don't
topic.
know how it's gonna like turn out because like there is some people that would love to for that to just like start off out of nowhere
Oh, they would
because I
love
mean
that.
there is some people that just kind of like want to go and like shoot around people and like cause a whole mess and a riot for just for self enjoyment.
Exactly.
But you never know who's doing it for their own benefit or just you know for a revolution.
Exactly. But here's the thing, because like people like to hypothesize about a second civil war, but they always like to take like the 1860 model where it was the US Civil War, and so
Yeah,
that was a political thing because it was between the abolitionists and the slave owners, and it was North and South. It was not only political, but it was economical. So it was like you had these southern slave owners who needed slavery because that's how they held their power, that's how they held their wealth. So that's why they did that. That's why those politicians sided with them. And so that was that. They want to say it's states' rights, but ultimately it was states' rights to own slaves. So like their argument already proves itself. So
yeah, pretty much.
when you look at this situation now, when you think about a civil war, it's like over what? Like, okay, what are we fighting for? Or what are we
I
fighting over?
mean, I wouldn't say civil war.
Yeah,
For right now, for what we're clearly fighting on for is for literally or human rights and for the government to just literally give us what we deserve, which is free healthcare because are on this situation where people are dying because we don't have healthcare. Like this, he was like a young man. Like he died because he didn't have a he didn't have any healthcare,
Hmm.
so they just let him like
Yeah,
die
it
of
was like a
the
17, like
coronavirus.
it was a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, he was 17. So I mean that's a huge issue, and I thought that was gonna like wake everybody up to realize that we do need free healthcare,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
obviously, rights to getting paid at least a good amount to survive, to
Hmm.
pay or bills in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it would be the main issue because there's a lot of red herrings that people are going to throw around because they want to make it a left wing or a right thing or a right, excuse me, a left thing, red and blue, political thing, or they want to make it a race thing. Oh, it's between the whites and the others, or oh, it's
Yeah.
it's clearly a class thing, and when you make it about class and you make it about the
It's
workers, that
because there's
includes.
a huge gap between the rich. Yeah.
Yeah, when you include the workers, that includes everybody. And that's like the
Yeah.
that's like not the 99%, that's everybody. And then you have the 1% who really own this country, and their bottom line is going to be affected by us rising up to them. So they're going to do everything. That's why they control the media, and that's how they're able to just spread information because it's divide and conquer, and once you conquer their minds, then like what there's nothing else you can do from there. So um yeah, so I mean, I'm studying journalism, but then once you learn more and more about mainstream media, it's just like, ugh, like I don't want to be a part of that. Like I still want to do something meaningful, but you know the allure is, hey, you'll make lots of money and you'll.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's my whole point there.
Rich.
Yeah, they have like the Chris Hayes type. Not to
No.
say that he's pretty good, but like it's still like, oh well, you want to make it, you want to be the big leagues, right? Well, then you have to play by our rules, so you can't rock the boat there. Yeah,
No. Yeah. No.
but
Uh,
yeah, so I mean, we talked quite a bit um about like coronavirus in the US, and I wanted to talk a little more about like international stuff, but there's still like the thing about like collapse talk in this show is just like there's so much to cover, and like it happens
there's
like.
so much to cover. It's
Yeah,
literally on every single it's all over the world, and
yeah,
obviously we have more information about USA. So
yeah,
I mean, I do have more of like South America, and right now they're really not paying attention to big deal about it.
yeah.
I guess it's like, yeah, he didn't everybody individually a couple of months after,
Mhm.
but shit really hit the wall.
Yeah, it hit the fan. Yeah, no, I've been also saying about like in South America and Ecuador, you were saying about like people dying in the streets in Honduras, and that's like happening in Ecuador also. It's like it's nasty. Like people like they'll just like leave them in the streets because they're just rotting in the house. Like, yeah, so you know, it in a time like this, normally we would step in with international aid, but now we can hardly help ourselves right now. So how are we going to help internationally? So it's going to be interesting. Um, I keep saying
It really
interesting.
is good. Now they're everybody's it's working for themselves. What I've actually heard about, it's a country that there was a like surprise for, which is El Salvador. The
Mm,
president's actually seeking for, or like giving its citizens like he's giving out like food. He actually has this restaurant that's making food for their citizens, and he's actually pardoning their bills.
mm,
Like they don't have to pay any bills for now. He's forgiving them. And he's giving out food. So
okay.
that's all I know so far. So far, he's doing a way better job than Trump is for sure.
Yeah.
Which everybody's
I
surprised, but he's so far working. a really good strategy.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, because this disease, it's respiratory. So, if you have a competent leadership or just, competent citizen or citizenry and leadership that says, hey, just stay home, wash your hands, wear a mask. Like, if everybody was on the same page, then you wouldn't see there people would get sick, obviously, but there's that whole flattening the curve. You know, you would be able to mitigate it, or at least you would take all these measures so that when people do get sick, it doesn't overwhelm the system. Um, like look at South Korea. So South Korea and the U.S. they had the same cases at the same time, but they did like massive testing and they did like
Yeah,
tracing
they're
back.
really
Yeah,
successful with the.
yeah, so they traced back and they would just see they just did massive testing. And my whole point being that, in a country like El Salvador, you had the president. uh do you know his name? I should look this up because I remember a Vice piece about him, and he's like supposed to be like very young, and he's supposed to be like an up and comer. So yeah, yeah, there we go, Nayib Bukele. um so
Yeah, naive. Yeah, he's
so
really young, and he just recently won the presidency. I believe it was on. Well, it was on June of last year,
yeah, very
and
recent.
yeah, it was a really like I guess a huge turning point for El Salvador because I believe they came out from like a really sucky president. I think it was Mauricio Funes. I'm trying to see. So, like the new president that they now have gave a huge change for El Salvador.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which it's really noticeable now.
no, I mean definitely that was like so yeah, so I mean there's probably been some cases in El Salvador. Let me actually like see, because I do have an app that's like tracking it. But it's just going to be interesting. It's going to be a case study to see which countries were able to handle it and their responses to it. Um, and also it's just like their economic model and like their political system and just how prepared they were for it. So let me see if I could find it. El Salvador. Okay, like let's look at Cuba. So, okay, so Cuba has 620 cases, confirmed cases, and they have 16 deaths so far.
Yeah, we actually had I believe France. Yeah, Italy had a couple of Cuban doctors.
Yeah, they sent out. Cuba has like top-notch doctors, so uh, they've been sending them out all over the world. So El Salvador, okay, confirmed cases 118 and 6 deaths. This is what I'm tracking so far, and I mean, again, it depends on like the level of testing. So El Salvador is a little, it's not completely impoverished, but it's not like at our level.
Yeah,
But that's still
it's
pretty
more of
low.
like the president's good and it's doing like some forgiveness or like the payments. Like just basic, I guess, basic needs that the citizens need, which is obviously they're not gonna be going out to work. The bills are being forgiven. They're getting some help with their with food, which is
Exactly.
good. But obviously, maybe Salvador doesn't have as much as I guess in economic wise, money wise, help for all those tests and for people to actually go out and do the COVID-19 test.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So they
yeah,
do more poverty situations.
yeah. But then again, I mean, people have lived through worse outbreaks. So, like, yeah. I mean, again, like, I don't want to downplay this pandemic, but there has been worse. So it's just like, but then again, it's still pretty early, and there's multiple strains,
Super.
and it can still mutate. So it's really just like it's a horror movie. I was actually like watching I haven't seen Contagion for some time, But I was watching
Have you seen
what's up?
Have you watched Parasite?
I have seen Parasite. I did see that actually.
I have to watch it. It's on Hulu right now,
That
so I'm
was
gonna go watch it.
yes. You go watch that right away. We should have had damn. We should because we could have honestly talked that for another like 20 minutes, but um, we'll just save that for another time. But yes, that's a very
Yeah,
good
'cause
film. But what I meant because like I was talking about like Contagion or because that's like a pandemic horror
yeah,
movie. Um,
yeah.
I was watching Outbreak, and that was like a '90s film. It was like with what Cuba Gooding Jr. and Dustin Hoffman had Kevin Spacey actually.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's just '90s blockbuster film. I like watching '90s films because like it's
I love 90s.
because
Yeah.
even when like it's like supposed to be dark and gritty, it's still kind of like campy and like yeah, like take that, like I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. No, not even. But I
so like
love it. I love
yeah, but like
just Lang.
This film Outbreak, it tracked um like just like an outbreak disease, like kind of like an Ebola outbreak, and it kind
Yes.
of like it kind of went over the top with it because like the military had to be like, oh, we have to wipe out the town and nuke it, or it kind of just
Yeah.
it went overboard, but like it was still just interesting to see like they definitely have some sort of plan to like if a disease gets way out of control, they would just wipe out a
Yeah.
whole city just to protect the country. But again, that's just movies, but it's nice to watch. But
That's
yeah,
his
I mean,
movies, yeah. But
yeah,
I mean, as of movies, you can like still see that they're like prepared. Like this whole outbreak like goes on, and then you can see like the kind of like I don't know if you ever seen the TED Talk by Bill Gates.
yeah,
Yes, and it was like what, like 5 years ago. He was like talking about
yeah,
how the US will not make it through a pandemic. Pretty much, he said it.
yeah. I mean, like this was very well known, and like there was also
It's definitely well known. Like who's deeply into science. It was not like any like conspiracy theory like or he's like psychic or anything like that. Like anyone who's deeply into science and just a pure scientist in general could have predicted a pandemic going on.
yeah. It's mainly just like because like nobody can predict when it happens, but then you look at our level of preparation and like what we have available to us, and then you can clearly see, okay, well, when it does
Yeah.
happen, not if it happens, when it does happen, we're not going to be ready for it. So,
Yeah.
they already knew. They could clearly tell like the level of like ICU beds, compared to the population that's needed. It's like, okay, we're not meeting that. We're also not meeting the face mask needs and just all this other equipment. But yeah, I mean, like there was also a report, like from 2017 at least, where the military or Department of Defense, some sort of organization, they identified like not COVID-19, but like the coronavirus or a strain, a novel strain of coronavirus, the level of threat that it was to this country that it could decimate us. So they knew they knew specifically that it would be a coronavirus virus that would hit us. They just you know it's just like at this point anybody who still protects Donald Trump over his response to this is just living in an alternate reality. Um,
Pretty much.
I mean,
Just
like there's
believing everything he says.
yeah, it's just interesting, but a lot of it, because it's not all like a lot of them are just like, oh yeah, I believe on all the race hatred that he espouses. It's just some people they understand that his financial policies are going to protect their portfolio or their their bottom line, so they can put up with all the sexist and racist bullshit because he's gonna protect their money. Yeah, and it's just gonna be interesting because he's clearly fucking this up, and somehow people are
Yeah,
still like
he's
they're still rallying to him or
still going out like vote for
Yeah.
him, and this is ridiculous.
Yeah. But I
But
mean, when people are afraid, they turn to their leaders. It's just some people, they don't realize that their leaders don't know what the fuck's going on either. So yeah, that's us. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about, or have you had anything to add in? Um,
I think it's. I mean, I guess COVID-19 situation wise, that would pretty much be it so far. We are still like in the beginning of this whole pandemic. This is what we've seen so far. Like we're shortest, like New York, pretty much being the main city
yeah,
that's set on fire. I know it's gonna be um, New York right now. It's going through it. Seattle has one of the highest rates as well. Um, and so far, they say Houston is probably another city that's gonna be hit the most as well.
possibly. Yeah,
As
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know.
but
I haven't been.
far,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because my family's still out there, so it's gonna.
yeah. How
Yeah,
are they doing so far? I know
they're
your mom and
they're good. Yeah, my parents, or I mean, my mother, she's fine. She lives alone, so like she calls me a lot and like she just talks. So it's just like I mean, of course,
yeah,
I have to sit there and listen, but I'm the only person that she's willing to like that you can just talk to, and you just have to sit there and shut up. But then yeah, my dad and his family, they're doing fine, and my sister's with my dad, and my stepsisters are all together, so they're all just living. I don't know. But I mean, they're living in like the KD area, Cinco Ranch, so it's a little more developed and suburban. So I'm not like
yeah,
worried. I'm not worried about like a massive unrest there, but at the same time, it's like, dude, I like I only went there for like a couple days just to see my mom, and then I got out. Like I don't know when I plan to go back. Well, actually, she has to move, so that's the only time I plan to go there. But I'm only gonna go to like a couple
yeah,
places, and yeah, maybe I'll go to the HEB just to see what it's like, but I'm gonna be like in the full hazmat suit. Like what I do now is
yeah.
like I put
Because
on, yeah, like what I
because
do
I
now
know
is
like stores over there are probably more hectic and kind of emptier. Because I my sister does go into the store sometimes. She does go inside goes inside Walmart, and I mean we are in a really urban area. Like there's really not much people living around or stuff like that. So there's a lot of farms. So I don't think they have an actual like way of like going out or whatever.
mhm,
But she's gone into the store and everything seems like pretty filled. Like Walmart is stocked up, like nothing. Pretty much like the only struggle that there is maybe some like eggs or toilet paper.
yeah,
That's pretty much it, or like any Clorox or whatever. But
yeah,
we did go to Cypress. It's kind of like closer to downtown, more like closer to KD over there,
yeah,
closer to Houston. And she did go to a Walmart near the area, and she said that it was kind of like it was way empty. Like everything's like the shelves, everything seemed like pretty empty compared to the Walmarts or HEBs over here.
yeah,
So the city wise, like downtown wise, anything near Houston is definitely you can see a whole difference. Like you can actually see the pandemic.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting driving in now and just the level of change. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
um,
I mean
yeah,
everything is pretty much changed. I
yeah,
think everything's gonna this is like the peak moment, and everything's just gonna be a complete change from now on. Like the way you're
yeah.
living.
It's just you know, so long as the supply chain is able to hold on, then there's nothing really to worry about. Uh, you know,
Yeah,
but then again, as I was talking about, you have the postal service, they're kind of struggling, and you have like the truckers, and I've been reading about like how truckers were financially struggling in the past, so they're gonna have to work. They still need to do it because they understand that they need to sustain the economy and people's lives. But like
Yeah.
they're gonna have to get something in return, because literally these essential workers can go on strike and just crash everything, you know, but they can't because they're struggling with bills and finances. So, a lot of people that they don't realize at the moment that they have a lot of power and leverage, but then again, it just takes, a little push, a little nudge, just to wake those up. But
Definitely.
yeah, so I mean, I think that about like wraps up this episode. I'm glad that you could like talk or just ramble on with me for a second. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. But I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to add on before we close this up?
So far, not much anymore. We're still seeing like the beginning of the pandemic, but so far everything that's it so far that I've experienced through this whole quarantine and pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. So it was good to share with y'all.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're just normal people talking, so we're living through this time, and this will just be an archive of this moment in time.
Two college students going through it.
Exactly. Two young college students. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in on that. So thanks again for tuning in and listening to our talk between me and Michelle Nuncio. And yeah, well, we're just gonna have to hang in till next time. I'm hoping to at least record a little bit more. I am concerned with my immediate survival now, so this is more just trying to stay busy and also stay on track with this program. But I do hope to at least record more or interview more with people, and also just to record daily life here. But yeah, but I'm also, this is my time to expand on this work. If you do believe in this program and my work and want to see this grow, you can definitely donate to my Patreon that I have set up. And I also have set up a PayPal. Again, this is not necessarily a requirement. This is more just if you feel that this is worth the investment, then those resources are there to help me. And also with PayPal, it will be collapsetalkpod@outlook.com. So it's all lowercase, all one word. That's also my personal email. So collapsetalkpod@outlook.com. That is just a way to contact me, and also on PayPal just to donate there. I also have a Twitter set up. I do need to be better with social media, but I do have that up, and I do hope to at least update and really just tweet more. Yeah, so my Twitter, Collapse Talk, or @Collapse Talk Pod. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in. Until next time, really, whenever that is, I hope to at least, well, yeah, I mean, you're going to hear from me, and we're just going to just talk and see how things have developed. But thanks again, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land? Lost in a romance, wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane. Waiting for the summer rain, yeah. There's danger on the edge of town. Ride the King's Highway, baby. Weird scenes inside the gold mine. Ride the highway west, baby. Ride the snake, ride the snake to the lake, the ancient lake, baby. The snake is long, 7 miles. Ride the snake. He's old and his skin is cold. The West is the best. The West is the best. Get here and we'll do the rest. The blue bus is calling us. The blue bus is calling us. Driver, where you taking us? The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall. He went into the room where his sister lived, and then he paid a visit to his brother, and then he walked on down the hall, and he came to a door, and he looked inside. Father, yes, son, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us. Come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus. Do not blue rock on that blue bus. Do not. Come on, yeah. This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end. It hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. The end of laughter and soft lies. The end of nights we try to die. This is the